Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is D, and this is my review for Halloween Ends, and this is a spoiler review. Here we go. Halloween Ends is a 2022 slasher film billed as the final entry in the iconic Halloween film series. Coming off the heels of Halloween Kills, which had fantastic elements but was ultimately disappointing, I had very tempered expectations for this final chapter. So when it comes to the final film in a big name franchise, how many of them have actually stuck the landing? The movie had a surprisingly strong opening where a freak accident leads to the death of a young boy who's being looked after by a babysitter. I must admit I didn't see this coming, as I was more so expecting the male babysitter to end up being a victim as the scene unfolded. A strong, shocking opening to grab my attention and pull me into the film. It's movie making 101 and it worked like a charm. But once I was pulled into the world of this movie, it started to become clear that the focus would be on Corey, the traumatized babysitter turned murderer, and his budding romance with Allyson, Laurie Strode's granddaughter. And while it could be argued that there is in fact an intriguing story to be told here, it's not exactly the story most fans signed up for. There are three big positives about Halloween Ends that I want to highlight. Moody autumn atmosphere. Keeping consistent with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, this movie looks quality and has a fantastic darkness to it. While the story wasn't entirely to my liking, the world it occupied was beautifully shown. Also, there's still a power in the nostalgia of everything that's going on, particularly in the ending portions of the movie. The obvious aging that's taken place with Strode, Myers, and other characters made me harken back and appreciate the history and impact of the franchise. Now, we did get a final battle between Laurie and Michael as promised, just not within the movie we imagined. And finally, the biggest positive takeaway from Halloween Ends is the brutal violence. One of my critiques of Halloween Kills was that despite the high body count, none of the kills stood out or were particularly memorable. Halloween Ends atones for that in some brutally memorable ways. But spoiler alert, the most brutal, intense kills aren't even done at the hands of Michael Myers, but at the hands of his young protege, Corey. On a practical level, this makes sense, as Michael is much older now, and Corey is young and full of newly acquired murderous vigor. But there are also moments when Michael seems to have a certain level of supernatural power and perception that contradicts the notion of him being weaker. And of course, there's the obvious point that in a Halloween film, particularly the final one, you'd like Michael to get most, if not all, of the body count highlights. Now, as far as Corey and Allyson are concerned, their romance felt like a plotline that belonged in a Halloween spin-off TV series. I'm inclined to say it actually would have been a legitimately good idea for an 8-episode streaming series, but once again, spoiler alert, they kill off Corey before the movie even ends, closing the door on his and Allyson's romance. This also means that for no long-term reason, viewers just watched a character not named Laurie or Michael dominate an entire film that was marketed to be about Laurie and Michael. Halloween Ends treats Corey like a main player and then disposes of him like the side character he is. As for Jamie Lee Curtis, she's never given a bad performance as Laurie, regardless of what any particular Halloween film is doing around her. This consistency continues here. I've seen multiple people say that this was a disappointing send-off for the legendary Scream Queen. And while I understand where that sentiment comes from, and I even agree to a certain degree, I think Curtis emerges from this film, her status as a performer and Laurie's status as a character, firmly intact. Halloween Ends could have been better, much better even. Somewhere between Halloween Kills' music and cinematography and Halloween Ends' brutality is the perfect final Halloween film. It's just a shame because that means they really, truly could have made an amazing Halloween movie. Alright, so that was my review for Halloween Ends. Disappointing film, but to be honest, I'm not that up in arms with it. I'm kind of just like, alright, I'm kind of okay with it at this point because I am, a little bit exhausted of the whole, them trying to keep hanging on to this franchise and not really hitting the mark most of the time when they try to do it. Halloween 2018, I think, was very strong from everything that I can remember about it. I think that was very strong, and then Halloween Kills had lots of strong ingredients, which made the whole movie more disappointing. The fact that they weren't able to really execute things to, at least for me, they didn't really execute things optimally, considering all the great ingredients they had. So Halloween Kills was very disappointing, and then that kind of same idea continues with Halloween Ends, where there are a few kind of nice ingredients there, and the atmosphere, the mood, the main players are all there, but they really just don't hit the mark. And this time it was almost like it felt like they were intentionally trying not to hit the mark. Of course, that's not the case. Nobody intentionally tries to make a bad movie, but they went in such a different direction that it was kind of like, what made you think this is what people were going to respond positively to? Like, what were you thinking here? And it was such an extreme direction change or misdirection in terms of where our focus was in the movie. It was so extreme that I almost want to give them some sort of credit for it, because it took a certain level of guts to even like go through with this, especially when you had everything you needed to make, like I said, the perfect final Halloween film. How you kind of really missed the mark this much, I don't know how, to me, the fact that they had us focus on Corey so much, and then they kill him off. If they were going to continue him into another movie, or like I said, a spin-off Halloween series where he's kind of the main focus, him and Allyson or whatever, that would have made a lot more sense, because you're setting the audience up for something. But you didn't really, you almost made it so like the audience gets babysitted by Corey's story, while the older Michael Myers and the older Laurie Strode kind of make sure they have energy to do their final fight at the end. Like, that's kind of what it kind of felt like. Like, Corey's story was just babysitting the audience, while the two main characters took their rejuvenating medicine and all that type of stuff and got their naps in so that they could have their big fight at the end. It was like a weird thing the way they executed this, but it's all right. So I will leave it there. I do recommend the movie if you're a fan of this franchise, because it's a part of the franchise that's worth a watch, just for seeing what they do, just to see what they do. And if it is truly the final film, it's worth a watch just for that aspect alone, for a certain level of closure, I suppose. So that is it. I will catch you on the next go round.